and they'll have the reference range. Now, usually that reference range for glucose is fasting. In other words, usually an overnight fast, and then they'll take it in the morning. And if your blood sugar is above the 99 level, then you are thought to have impaired glucose handling up to about 125, and then above that, it's called diabetes. Okay? So if your fasting blood sugar on more than a couple of occasions is greater than 125, we refer to it as diabetes. Between 99 and 126 is impaired carbohydrate tolerance, pre-diabetic, if you want to call it that. Okay, the next two, the urea nitrogen. It's called blood urea nitrogen, BUN. And then creatinine, there it's 0.73. The creatinine and the blood urea nitrogen are substances that are in the blood. They result from the breakdown of certain proteins, and the kidney normally filters these. But if there is a problem with, let's say, kidney function, or let's say that there is a shrunken vascular volume because, let's say, the person is taking diuretic medications or whatever, and so the filtration pressures going into the kidneys are not as great and you can't filter as much, those levels will start to rise. So the BUN and creatinine are often looked at as representative of kidney function. It doesn't matter so much if they're low, but if they're high, you've got some problem there. Dehydration, like I said, shrinking the vascular volume, can also cause the BUN to go up. Creatinine also, but not proportionately. The normal ratio between the BUN and creatinine is somewhere around 10 to 1. BUN to creatinine, 10 to 1. That's a fairly normal ratio. And it is in there, you see. Now, you'll come to the eGFR, which is estimated glomerular filtration. It's a big word. The glomerulus in the kidney is just that collection of capillaries where the blood is brought, and then the filtration takes place where there is an exchange of the blood substances that are going to be excreted. They are removed, and it comes in contact with the renal tubule, the kidney tubule, and so through the mechanism, it's very complicated physiologically. Truly, we are wonderfully and marvelously and fearfully made, right? But there's an exchange so that those substances that are going to be excreted from the blood will be passed over into the kidney tubule, the nephron, and then excreted in the urine. Well, the glomerulus are these little capillary tufts where all of this is taking place, and if the glomerular filtration rate is low, kidney function is usually impaired. So you might be able to find normal BUN and creatinine early on in kidney disease, but the glomerular filtration may be impaired. It's a more sensitive indicator. And you'll see that they list it for a non-African American or an African American. There seems to be some difference there. And they'll usually print it out, and you look at that as to whether it applies to you. Are you an African American or a non-African American? So again, it's a reflector of kidney function. After that, you can see the BUN and creatinine ratio, and you remember they give you up to about 22, but the average figure is around 10. Now let's move on to sodium, potassium, chloride, and carbon dioxide. Those are normally put together and referred to as the serum electrolytes or blood electrolytes: salt, sodium, chloride, potassium, and carbon dioxide. Things change in the blood with different disease processes. If a person becomes acidotic or alkalotic for some reason, you'll see fluctuations in these, like in the CO2 level. If a person, let's say, develops different disease states, they may have changes in their sodium and chloride concentration. If we're giving people diuretic medication that's causing salt to be excreted with chloride, you may drop the serum sodium and the chloride. People sometimes that go into fluid overload states may dilute the sodium down, so they have hyponatremia. That's what it's called, low serum sodium. So that's what those are. Those are the blood electrolytes. Then you get total serum protein, and then the albumin, which is another carrier fraction. Many substances are carried by albumin, which is a carrier molecule. It's usually produced in the liver. The globulin portion, you'll see, is where we find a lot of the immune globulins. You've heard of, like, the gamma globulins. You know, if people are given injections to try to boost the immune system. And there are several classes of the immunoglobulins. There's IgG, IgA, IgM, IgE. But anyway, they're proteins, and they're a subclass of this. So the two classes under protein is your albumin and your globulin fraction. And that's where they're categorizing this. Low levels of serum albumin and protein can be found in states where there is disease and the person is not able to eat very well. They're cachectic, they're malnourished. Protein levels and albumin will drop. If you get certain inflammatory disease states where the immune system is activated, you may see a rise in serum proteins, and especially the globulin fraction, because of inflammatory responses that are going on. And then below that, you'll see total bilirubin, alkaline phosphatase, AST and ALT. This reflects liver function. Total bilirubin, alkaline phos, AST and ALT. Now, the total bilirubin may be elevated in some individuals in the fasting state, and this is referred to as Joubert syndrome, spelled Gilbert, G-I-L-B-E-R-T, a Frenchman whose name is applied to this. He first, I guess, observed it. But it simply means that there is a sluggish enzyme system in the liver for conjugating breakdown products of red blood cells. That's all it is. If all the other tests are normal, the bilirubin is a little bit elevated, we're not too concerned about that. But if there is an elevation of your alkaline phosphatase enzyme or the AST-ALT, that is more reflective of some problems that have affected the liver. Alkaline phosphatase is normally found in those cells that line the bile ducts and ductules. The AST and the ALT are enzymes that are found more in what is called the liver parenchymal cells. the substance of the liver that does certain things, that makes certain things, and so forth. Hepatitis, you'll get a rise primarily in the AST and ALT. They usually go up very high, some elevation of alkaline phos. But if you begin to get biliary obstruction for any reason of the bile ducts, the alkaline phosphatase will go very high. Urinalysis, let's move to that. They'll usually give you a color of the urine and whether or not it is turbid or cloudy or clear. And then they'll give you a specific gravity. The normal specific gravity, where the urine is neither concentrated nor diluted, is 1.010, 1010. If you're concentrating your urine, then the values will be above 1010. If you're diluting your urine, the value will be below 1010. Now, for most people that are healthy and are drinking a fair amount of water, your urine should be very pale and clear, right? Because you're putting out a lot of fluid. Even though you're excreting impurities, the kidneys are able to do that in a larger volume of fluid. Have you ever noticed, though, how, let's say, if you've had a long day, let's say you've been outside, you've sweated, you haven't gone to the bathroom very much, you haven't drunk much water, what color is your urine? Very concentrated, like a deep yellow or dark. And that is not the best. You want your urine to be pale, very dilute. That's right. Okay, so then you go on down, and now we are looking at the pH. A lot of people look at that and they want to say, oh, well, the body's acid or it's alkaline or whatever. No, the body will adjust and keep the blood pH almost to tenths of a point within about 7.4. But it does it by changing the pH of the urine and how much carbon dioxide the person is exhaling in the breath. And there's some other buffering systems, but those are the two main, the kidneys and the lungs. Average, you can see there, 5 to 8. 8 is up more in the alkaline, and 5 and below is more acidic. Now, there is, when they do a urinalysis, they do a dipstick. They take the urine, it's in a little cup, and they just put a little stick that's been impregnated with certain squares. And they stick the little dipstick in it and hold it up to a chart, and they're looking at it. And it's a color chart. And you have various things. You have glucose, bilirubin, ketones, which is another byproduct of fat metabolism. So if you're fasting for a long time, you're going to start burning fat, and the ketones will be positive. Occult blood, if there's any blood in the urine, any protein in the urine. Nitrites is a chemical substance that it becomes positive if there's usually bacteria in the urine. Leukocyte esterase, it just tells you, are there inflammatory white blood cells that are picked up there? And then they count them, white cells, WBCs, RBCs. Squamous epithelial cells are seen mostly in ladies because the urethra opens there right at the vaginal vestibule. And so you can get just desquamated, normal lining cells in the urine, and those are called squamous epithelial cells. If you get that, you probably have a contaminated urine. Because you want a clean catch and a midstream usually. So they'll have, it's easier for a male, just the anatomy is different, but for a female it's more easy to get contamination from the vaginal tract. So we usually will ask ladies especially, but also men, to make sure that before we collect the specimen we do hygienic cleansing of the perineum. And then we ask them to go ahead and start to urinate, and then while they are urinating in midstream, collect the sample, so it's not a start or a stop sample, it's right in the middle, and then we'll get the most reliable